Hello and welcome. So today I want to talk to you about 3 tips to keep your renovation on track and on budget. And if you hear any construction noise, then I'm sorry about that. It's very hard to get away from any kind of noise like that at our house because we are renovating. So just bear with us. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Claire O'Connell. I'm the beating heart behind Renovation of Life. This is the channel for you if you're into everything to do with home, including investing, design, and renovations. So today I want to talk to you about 3 tips to keep your renovation on time and on budget. And the one consistency I would say with any renovation, I mean, we've been renovating for the last 10 years, and the one consistency I would tell you is that things will always come up. Change always happens. And you can't plan for everything in a renovation. So when you first start your renovation planning, you know, you don't know necessarily what's behind the walls. There could be issues that come up that are just unforeseen. And so that's why it's so important to, to do some planning so you can mitigate some of those risks. So tip number 1 is to have a budget. Now, you're probably thinking, well, Claire, that's pretty obvious. Having a budget is pretty obvious, and most people do have a budget of sorts. So maybe you might say, well, my renovation is going to cost me $50,000, but that's as far as you take it. So the next step of making sure that you're managing your renovation is that you actually put prices and budget against each item. So say, for example, you're renovating your kitchen, you need to factor in your appliances, your tapware, your hardware, your flooring, cabinetry, all of those sorts of things. And by breaking your budget out will help you see how much you can allocate to certain things, because times we tend to think, oh, well, $50,000 will go a long way. But actually when you start to factor in labor costs and all the rest of it, it actually gets eaten up pretty quickly. So you might find that those, the hardware that you were planning to purchase that are like $30 a piece ends up being, well and truly outside of the budget when you start to break it out and you end up needing to find a different solution. So now number 2 would be so tip number 2 is to make sure that you have a timing plan. So we call it a construction plan. And basically what we do is we list out each of the steps within the project, down to, like, if it's a massive project that we're working on, the surveyor coming in, and then, first fix, second fix, third fix for plumbing and electrical, those sorts of things. And what it enables us to do is start to map out our timing. And if we're working with trades, we can ask them, when do you need to come in, and we can put that timing in our timing plan. That enables us to manage the trades more effectively, but it also means that we can keep track of when materials are required. So for example, when the plumbers are coming in to do their second fix phase, they need to know what kind of tapware we're having, or faucets, depending on where you are. And they need to know what height, the cabinetry is going to be, so that the plumbing at the appropriate place. It's going to be a lot more expensive for you to get the plumbers to come back in and fix that problem later. So you need to be quite organized. And other thing, by having a plan, it enables you to know, okay, well, I know in 4 weeks time, or 3 weeks time, or 2 weeks time, I need to have my, my sink in place, or my sink on site, or at least the specifications of the sink, so that it can be plumbed in, or it can be measured if the fabricators are coming for the stonework, those sorts of things. And what it gives you is time. So a plan enables you to go out and go shopping, and to, shop the sales, shop around and get a better price for some of the products that you're looking to purchase. And that will help you save some money on some items. Whereas if you're not planning for those things, and all of a sudden you're being told the plumbers will be here next week, and you don't have a proper plan in place, and you have 2 days to go out and get your tap and your hardware and this, that, and the other, well, it means that you're gonna be have to shop for where the items are currently selling. And that means that you can't shop sales, you can't shop clearance. Usually you just have to buy what's available off the shelf. And so you might be spending more for a product that you could have saved on had you bought it, ahead of time. So it gives you a bit of grace to really work and flex that budget and make sure that you are utilizing the tools available to you. And maybe you want to shop on Marketplace. There's some great finds. We have found some incredible items on Marketplace, including a solid marble, huge sink, which would have been in the thousands of dollars had we bought it off the shelf. But we shopped around, we got it for $300, and I was planning to spend nearly $1,000 on a kitchen sink. So we've saved ourselves $600 and something there. And, that goes back into our budget and gets to be allocated to other areas. So that's why it's really good to have a plan in place so that you can really effectively manage that better. Tip number 3 is to have a contingency. So this is so important, and let me explain to you what a contingency is. So a contingency of time and money. So I would always have both. And the reason I say that is I hear a lot of people just talk about a contingency of money, and that is so important, but things happen in a renovation, and usually when you have a hit to your budget, it's also a hit to your timing plan. So you have to factor that in. So if you're planning to move into your renovation straight after it's finished and you have no factor in for your timing, you know, you could be very disappointed at the end of that process. So let me explain it to you. So once you have identified your budget, so say your budget is $50,000, then you need to allocate 15 to 20% of that $50,000 on top of that $50,000 of your total budget to go into a contingency fund that you don't allocate to any of the items on your material lists or anything like that. Now that contingency will sit there in case you need it. So let me give you an example. So I was speaking recently to a renovator who had purchased some build-it-yourself cabinetry, replacing a 1990s kitchen, and it turns out the cabinetry that they purchased is not as deep as the original cabinets were. So what does that mean? That means effectively that they're going to need more stone than they had originally budgeted for. So they actually need 2 extra slabs. So it's a huge hit to their budget. Now, luckily they did have a contingency in place, which means that they could take from that contingency fund to pay for that stone. But if they didn't have that contingency in place, then of course that would have been a massive hit to their budget, and they could have they might have had to have looked elsewhere within their budget to recover that money, or come up with the funds in some other way, because it's not realistic to say, well, I'll just put the whole kitchen on hold and have a half completed shell of a kitchen to work with and live within. So, I mean, most people wouldn't be able to live like that long term. So yeah, so that's one thing. And then a factor of time is so important, because in my experience, so like I said, we've been renovating for over 10 years now. And in my experience, when Derek says to me, I'm going to have this finished to you in a week, usually that means 2.5 weeks. So there is always has to be, set your expectations that there always needs to be more time than you've allocated. So factor that contingency in. So if you are planning to move into the renovation, maybe you're renting, maybe you just want to add an extra month onto that rental plan, or at least mentally prepare yourself that the house will not be ready by the exact date that you've said so. Now, obviously by having the tip number 2, which is the proper plan in place, you can then say, okay, well, what could we move around within our plan to enable us to move in earlier? And that will help you to manage your plan more effectively and to identify those, because I mean, you can live in a renovation, but there are some things that obviously you need to have: running water, a running toilet, you want to have some sink facilities. So, you know, you might want to prioritize certain things in your construction plan that you hadn't, because now that you're running over time, but you want to move back into the house. So they're the reasons why I would say they're my top 3 tips, or I would say to stay on time and on budget with your renovation. But the biggest thing I would say, guys, as a big bonus tip, is you've got to remember that renovations, things happen, things come up all the time, and you cannot be rigid in your approach to how you manage your renovation and how you manage your time. So plan for it, adjust the plan, manage the plan daily if you need to, weekly, whatever it may be, stay on top of it. But also remember that you just have to have a level of, okay, well, it is what it is. Let's just factor that in and come up with the next phase to move forward. Because renovating can be so overwhelming, and having the right mindset is going to be really important to you as well. Well, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed my 3 tips to staying on time and on budget. If you like what you see, make sure that you hit subscribe, hit the bell button so you never miss an update. And don't forget to check out my other videos within this series. I'll add some links below as well. And if you're interested, you can always check out our renovation, which we're currently working on. I do weekly updates on that as well. So check that out. I'll add all the links below in the comments. So that is it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed my tips. Now, if you can create that budget tracker and that construction plan yourself, you know, go in and create your spreadsheet, make sure it all works. But if you want one done for you and you basically just want to click plug it in and click and play and add all your links and bits and pieces and have it all formula driven, then check out the Fixer Upper Budget Material Tracker. I've added a link below just so that you can basically get organized. It's super easy to use. It's very, very simple, and it works. I mean, we've been using this tracker for years, and it really has enabled us to stay on track and on budget on all of our projects, whether they're our own home or a flip house. It works either way. Otherwise, happy renovating, and I'll see you next time.